I will not marry a mummy's boy, no matter how rich he is. Adana's voice cracked through the dining room like a whip. Her mother's fork froze midair, eyes widening with rage. Adana, lower your voice. Have you lost your mind? Adana slammed her wine glass on the table, her jaw tight. Lost my mind? No, mummy. I'm the only one thinking clearly here. I built an empire from scratch. I make deals that men twice my age can't even dream of. And you want me to settle for Chuka? He scoffed. A man who calls his mother every hour to breathe. Her mother's face flushed crimson. Don't you dare insult him. That man is a good man. Educated, respectable, and from a family that matters. He is the kind of man you should be proud to stand beside. Adana leaned forward, her eyes cold as steel. The only man I'll stand beside is one who knows his own strength, not one hiding in his mother's shadow. From the corner, Emmanuel, the laundry guy, lifted his head. He wasn't supposed to hear this, but his hands slowed on the crisp white shirt he was folding. Their eyes met for the briefest moment. His face revealed nothing, but that faint smirk tugging at his lips said it all. He'd heard every word. Adana's blood boiled hotter. This conversation is over, she hissed, grabbing her clutch. She stormed out, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. Adana, you can't keep running from tradition. One day you will regret this stubbornness, her mother shouted after her, her voice echoing through the massive dining hall. Adana didn't stop. She stepped out into the cool evening breeze, the gates of her mansion looming like iron guardians. For the first time that day, she exhaled, her chest tight with rage and exhaustion. 32. Billionaire. CEO of one of the most powerful tech firms in Africa. Yet here she was, being told to marry a man she didn't want, just to keep some family alliance alive. She slid into the back seat of her Bentley, the scent of leather wrapping around her. She could feel her driver's cautious glance in the rearview mirror, but she waved him off. Take me to Aura Lounge, she ordered, her voice low, almost dangerous. Tonight she needed an escape. Something loud, something wild, something that reminded her she was in control of her life. If her mother wanted to play fire with pressure, then fine. Adana would burn the whole damn script. As the car pulled away, back in the mansion, Emmanuel gathered the last of the laundry. His jaw tightened as he stared at the door she had just walked through. Her words replayed in his mind like an uninvited song. The only man I'll stand beside is one who knows his own strength. He chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. A woman like Adana was beyond his reach. She was the sun and he. Just a shadow in her empire. Still, something inside him whispered, the sun sets too. And when it does, shadows have their moment. The bass thumped like a second heartbeat as Adana stepped into Aura Lounge. The air was thick with perfume, sweat, and the promise of sin. Neon lights splashed red and purple across her flawless skin as heads turned the moment she entered. She was impossible to ignore. A tailored black jumpsuit hugged her curves, her diamond necklace catching the light like a dare. She moved to the VIP section not because she asked for it, but because that's what everyone offered a woman like her. Champagne. Tequila. The waiter hovered nervously. Whiskey, she said, her voice like silk laced with steel. And don't be stingy. Her phone buzzed on the table, Mum calling. She stared at it, jaw tightening. Then, with a bitter laugh, she flipped it face down. The first glass burned her throat, but not enough. By the third, the music pulsed through her veins, drowning her thoughts. She laughed louder, danced harder, her hair whipping like flames around her shoulders. For a few hours, she wasn't Adana the CEO. She was just a woman, wild, angry, and craving freedom. When she finally stumbled out of the lounge at 2 a.m., the night air slapped her face. Her driver rushed to open the door, but her steps wavered, her heels sinking into the earth like rebellion itself. Home, she muttered, sinking into the back seat, her head spinning. The lights of Lagos smeared into a drunken blur, each passing streetlight mocking her thoughts. A mummy's boy, a husband by force. She laughed bitterly, then whispered under her breath. Never. By the time they reached the mansion, her legs were jelly. The driver tried to help her, but she waved him off with a lazy flick of her wrist. Stumbling through the grand doors, she cursed under her breath as her clutch slipped and fell with a clang. From the shadows of the hallway, Emmanuel appeared, holding a folded pile of fresh linens. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her. Mascara smudged, hair tousled, the icy queen looking like a fallen angel. Madam, are you okay? His voice was deep, calm, steady in the storm. She turned slowly, her hazy eyes locking on him. For a moment, the silence stretched, thick and dangerous. Something in his tone, the unflinching steadiness, struck her. He didn't look at her with pity. He didn't look away either. His gaze was raw, direct, like he saw her, not the money, not the power. Just her. Adana's lips curved into a slow, reckless smile. "Help me upstairs," she whispered. And that was how it began. The echo of her heels faded as Emmanuel slipped the folded linens onto a console table. For a moment, he stood frozen, watching her lean against the wall, one hand pressed to her forehead, the other clutching the railing like her life depended on it. Her perfume, rich, warm, and heady, wrapped around him, stirring something he had buried a long time ago. "Come on," he said quietly, moving toward her. His voice was steady, but inside, his pulse thundered. Adana looked up, her eyes glazed but fiery. "I said, help me upstairs." He hesitated for half a breath, then slid an arm around her waist. Her body melted against his, softer than he expected, warmer than he was ready for. Every step up the marble staircase was a battle, not against her weight, but against the electricity crackling between them. By the time they reached her bedroom, Adana had gone silent. Not asleep, not quite awake, just watching him with those heavy-lidded eyes that seemed to undress him with every glance. He laid her gently on the bed and turned to leave, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. But then, her fingers curled around his wrist. "Don't go," she whispered. His breath caught. "Madam, you've had too much to drink. Let me." She sat up slowly, her hair tumbling around her face like dark silk. "Don't call me that," she murmured, her voice low, intoxicating. "Say my name." He swallowed hard, every muscle in his body screaming for control. "Adana." The way he said it, soft, rough around the edges, sent a shiver down her spine. She moved closer, so close he could feel the heat of her breath against his skin. "You think I don't notice you, Emmanuel?" Her voice was a dangerous melody now. "Always so quiet, so bold in your silence." He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then her lips brushed his jaw, featherlight, like a spark daring to ignite a wildfire. And that was it. The dam broke. His hands gripped her waist, pulling her in, their mouths crashing together in a kiss that tasted of whiskey and pure rebellion. Clothes became nothing but obstacles, tossed carelessly to the floor as heat swallowed reason. That night, the billionaire queen and her laundryman set fire to every rule, every line, every boundary. And when it was over, they lay tangled in silk sheets, her head resting on his chest, his breath still uneven. Emmanuel stared at the ceiling, a war raging inside him. This was wrong. This was beautiful. This could destroy them both. And then sleep claimed them. Neither noticed the first light of dawn creeping through the curtains, or the storm it was dragging with it. The sun was merciless that morning, streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows like a spotlight on sin. Adana stirred, her head pounding, her throat dry as paper. She groaned, pulling the silk sheet over her face to block the light. "Why does my bed smell like whiskey?" And then she felt it. A heavy arm draped across her waist. Warm skin pressed against her back. Steady breathing that wasn't hers. Her eyes flew open. Slowly, painfully, she turned her head. And there he was, Manuel, the laundry guy, sleeping in her bed, bare-chested, peaceful, like he belonged there. For a second the world stopped. Every sound vanished except the roar of blood in her ears. She shot up, clutching the sheet to her chest, her eyes wide with horror. What the hell is this?" Her scream ripped through the silence, jolting Emmanuel awake. He blinked, dazed, confusion clouding his handsome face, until reality hit. "Adana." His voice was rough, sleepy, almost guilty. "Don't you dare say my name," she spat, pacing to the edge of the room. Her heart was a drumline, her mind a hurricane. Fragments of last night flashed in her head like a broken reel. His hands on her skin, her lips on his, the way she begged him not to leave. She covered her mouth, a strangled sound escaping her throat. "This didn't happen. It never happened," she hissed. Emmanuel sat up slowly, the sheet sliding down his torso, revealing muscles carved like temptation itself. His voice was calm, but his eyes... Oh, his eyes burned. "You wanted me to stay. You said my name." Her breath caught. His tone wasn't apologetic. It was steady, like a man who had nothing to lose. That scared her more than anything. "Get out," she whispered. Then louder. "Get out of my room." He stood, pulling on his trousers in silence, his gaze never leaving hers. When he reached the door, he paused, his hand on the knob. "You can pretend it didn't happen," he said quietly, turning just enough for her to see that maddening smirk curve his lips. "But we both know it did." And with that, he walked out, leaving Adana trembling, half with rage, half with something she refused to name. She sank onto the bed, her chest heaving. "What have I done?" But deep inside, beneath the shame and the fear, something dangerous flickered to life. Desire. Adana's heels clicked like thunder as she stormed into her study, rage boiling in her veins. Her assistant trailed behind, clutching a tablet. "Fire him," Adana snapped, tossing a folder on the desk. "Fire who, ma'am?" "Emmanuel." The name tasted bitter on her tongue. "I don't want him in my house another second." The assistant hesitated. "But he's one of the best staff we've had. Discreet. Reliable." Adana whirled on her, eyes blazing. "Did I ask for a resume? Do it. Now." She spent the next hour buried in contracts, trying to drown the memory of his hands on her, the sound of his voice when he said her name. But it clung to her like a second skin. Every thought, every breath, dragged her back to that night. By evening she needed air. She wandered through the mansion's silent corridors, her anger slowly cooling into something far more dangerous. Longing. Then she heard it, the rhythmic hum of a machine. The laundry room door stood ajar, warm light spilling across the hallway. She stepped closer, her pulse betraying her. There he was, Manuel, shirtless again, muscles flexing under golden skin as he lifted a basket of fresh linens. His head turned slightly, catching her shadow in the doorway. "You're still here," she said coldly, stepping inside. He met her gaze, calm, unbothered. "No one told me I was leaving." She crossed her arms, standing like a queen in enemy territory. "You think you can defy me, after what happened?" He dropped the basket, straightening to his full height. His eyes held hers, dark, daring, the kind of look that stripped excuses bare. "What happened," he said slowly, "is something you wanted as much as I did." Her breath caught. "Watch your mouth." "No," he cut in, voice low and rough. "I won't. You can fire me, insult me, pretend you're still untouchable. But you and I both know you're lying to yourself." The room seemed smaller now, the air thicker. Adana's pulse thudded in her ears as he stepped closer, closing the space between them. "Stop," she whispered, but her feet didn't move. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "Tell me you don't want this. Look me in the eye and lie." Her lips parted, ready to spit the words, but nothing came out. Her body betrayed her, trembling with a hunger she didn't want to admit. When his fingers brushed hers, just a graze, fire shot up her spine. She yanked her hand back like it burned, spinning on her heel. "Leave," she choked out, her voice trembling. "Before I forget who I am." Behind her, his low chuckle followed like a sin. "Too late, Adana." She didn't stop walking, but deep down she knew he was right. The lines weren't just crossed, they were gone. Morning sunlight painted the mansion gold, but for Adana, it felt like a storm brewing behind the walls. She sat at the head of her boardroom table later that day, every strand of her sleek hair in place, every inch of her designer suit screaming power. Yet beneath the surface, chaos simmered. Her phone buzzed. Again. She ignored it. Then came the text. "Chuka is back in Lagos. He will be visiting you tonight. Wear something nice." Adana's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles turned white. Perfect. Just perfect. As if that wasn't enough, whispers had started slithering through the house. She caught them in the hushed voices of maids, the quick glances exchanged when she walked past. One night, one mistake, and suddenly her empire felt like glass ready to shatter. And Emmanuel, he was everywhere, in the halls, in the garden, in her head, moving with that unshakable confidence, like the walls of her world didn't intimidate him in the slightest. By evening she was pacing her bedroom, nerves on fire. Chuka's sleek black car pulled up the driveway like an omen. When he stepped out, polished, charming, perfect, she almost laughed. He was everything her mother wanted, and nothing she needed. Dinner was unbearable. Chuka smiled too much, talked about his business deals like they were bedtime stories. Adana forced a polite smile, nodding at all the right places, while her mind screamed. Then it happened. As Chuka excused himself to take a call, she turned and froze. Emmanuel stood at the far end of the dining hall, clearing a table. Their eyes locked. That look, dark, dangerous, pinned her where she sat. It wasn't just heat. It was a challenge. Her pulse roared in her ears. She knew she should look away. He didn't. When Chuka returned, he smiled, oblivious. "Adana, about what our parents discussed. I think it's time we made it official." Her chest constricted. She opened her mouth to reply, but Emmanuel's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Excuse me, madam," he said, his tone calm, but his eyes. Oh, his eyes were fire. "May I speak with you? Privately?" Chuka frowned. "What's this about?" Adana swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "Just give me a moment." She followed Emmanuel down the corridor, her heels clicking like warning shots. When they reached the laundry room, he shut the door with a soft click. "Have you lost your mind?" she hissed, spinning to face him. His jaw tightened, his voice low, controlled. I'm done pretending. You think you can go back to him after what happened between us? This is none of your. His hands slammed against the wall beside her head, caging her in. Stop lying, Adana. Her breath hitched. She hated that her body betrayed her every time. How close he was, how his scent wrapped around her like a dark secret. You belong to no one, he murmured, his lips inches from hers. But if you think you can forget me, go ahead. Try. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. Emmanuel. And then he kissed her. Hard. Hungry. The kind of kiss that turned reason to ash. This wasn't love. This was war. And she was losing. The kiss burned like wildfire, searing through every wall Adana had built around her heart. Emmanuel's lips moved against hers with a hunger that matched her own. Raw, desperate, unstoppable. Her fingers curled into his shirt, dragging him closer until their bodies collided like colliding storms. Every part of her screamed that this was wrong. That her mother, Chuka, the world, everyone would crucify her for this. But in that moment, none of it mattered. The only truth was the man pinning her against the wall, the way he made her feel alive, wanted, in a way no boardroom deal or billion-dollar contract ever could. Emmanuel! Her voice broke as his mouth traced a path down her neck, leaving sparks in its wake. We can't. We already did, he murmured against her skin, his breath hot. His hands gripping her waist like he owned her. And you're not stopping me now. She should have pushed him away. Instead, she pulled him closer. Clothes became casualties of war, buttons snapping, silk sliding to the floor, until they were lost in the heat of forbidden ecstasy. Sound. A step. Adana froze, her pulse slamming in her throat. Emmanuel stilled, his body still pressed against hers, his breath ragged. The doorknob rattled. Adana! Chuka's voice rang out, sharp with irritation. Are you in there? Her heart stopped. Emmanuel's eyes met hers, burning with defiance. He leaned in, whispering against her lips. Tell him to wait. She shoved him back, scrambling for her dress. Her hands shook as she yanked it over her head. Her hair a wild mess, her lipstick smeared like guilt. The door creaked open just as Emmanuel slipped into the shadows. His shirt still unbuttoned. His smirk daring the world to catch him. Chuka stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over her. What are you doing here? His voice was laced with suspicion. Adana forced a brittle laugh. I needed a moment. The noise was giving me a headache. Chuka's eyes narrowed, but before he could question further, Emmanuel emerged from the corner. Cool, collected, carrying a stack of folded towels as if nothing had happened. Madam, I'll leave these here, he said smoothly, his voice dripping with quiet arrogance. His eyes flicked to hers for a split second, a glance that felt like fire against her skin. Chuka stared at him, then back at her. Something in his jaw tightened. When Emmanuel walked out, the silence that followed was deafening. Adana! Chuka's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. What exactly is going on here? Her throat closed. This wasn't just a question. It was the start of a war. The night draped over the mansion like a velvet shroud, thick with tension that could snap with a whisper. Adana stood by the balcony in her silk robe, staring at the glittering city lights, her mind a storm of choices and consequences. Behind her, Chuka's voice broke the silence. Enough games, Adana. His tone was sharp, a blade cloaked in calm. She turned to see him standing in the doorway, hands buried in his pockets, eyes blazing with barely contained fury. What do you mean? She asked coolly, masking the tremor in her chest. Chuka stepped closer, his jaw tight. You think I don't see it? The way you look at him. The way he looks at you. Do you know what people will say when this gets out? Our families, your investors, they will tear you apart. Adana's breath caught. The weight of his words pressed against her ribs, but before she could answer, another voice slid into the room like smoke. Maybe she doesn't care what they say. Both heads snapped toward the door. Emmanuel stood there, broad-shouldered, unflinching. His dark eyes locked on Chuka like a predator sizing up prey. His shirt clung to him, damp from the rain, every line of muscle etched like defiance. You have no right to be here, Chuka spat. Emmanuel stepped in, slow, deliberate, each stride humming with danger. I have every right if she wants me here. His gaze flicked to Adana, and for a split second, the world burned in that look. Fire and hunger and something deeper, something terrifying. Chuka turned to her, his voice a plea now. Adana, tell him to leave. Tell him this thing is over. For your sake. For your empire. For everything you've built. Adana's chest rose and fell, her heart pounding like war drums. She looked from Chuka, the perfect polished man her mother worshipped, to Emmanuel, the man who had set her soul on fire with a single touch. Her lips parted. I. Before the words could form, Emmanuel moved. In 2 strides he was in front of her, his hand cupping her face with a tenderness that broke her in half. Don't choose safety if it means losing yourself, he whispered, his voice raw. Choose what makes you feel alive. Tears stung her eyes. For the first time in years, Adana, Queen of Steel billionaire boss, felt like just a woman who had to decide. She turned to Chuka, her voice steady now, sharp as glass. This is my life, and I will not live it in a cage. Chuka's face twisted, betrayal flashing like lightning. You'll regret this. Maybe, she said softly. But at least it'll be my choice. He stormed out, the door slamming like a gunshot. Silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of her shaky breath. Emmanuel's thumb brushed away a tear she didn't know had fallen. You just burned every bridge, he murmured. Then let's build new ones, she whispered, pulling him into a kiss that tasted like defiance and forever. And as the city lights blazed beneath them, Adana knew one thing. This wasn't the end of her empire. This was the beginning of her revolution. But what neither of them knew was that someone had captured everything on camera. And by morning, the world would know her secret.